Hello everybody and welcome to a new luck poker video. Today I'm here for you with 4 tables NL25 session on CoinPoker. I started a few minutes ago and so far I would say the session is going okay. We are about break even. I won a stack here, lost a stack here, so we start even. The tables do not look as soft as they were the last time I played on L25. Maybe it was a better time, whatever, but still I see many recreational players in weird plays, so I still think there is a lot of EV at these tables. But let's see. We are going to play our best, and I will try to explain all my thinking processes during this session. So now we have pocket fours on table 2 on the button. This guy opens. He's probably a recreational player since he's playing from mobile, and that's why I'm gonna 3-bet in position. I would not 3-bet out of position. This hand sucks out of position. Could have also called. I saw later the big blind was also a recreational player, and when this guy leads out here, I'm probably just gonna fold. Our hand is not a very great bluff catcher. Him leading out is a bit weird. So I would say it's just best to just let it go. I wouldn't go too much into reasonings like this is my range, this is my board, so I have a range advantage, blah blah blah. Those things do not count versus recreational players. So I would say when we have nothing and bad blockers and they bet into us, probably should just fold, unless we have, of course, a read or something. 7-3 off on table 1 is gonna be a fold, and ace-4 offsuit as well on table 3. Jack-4 off can be played. And as I mentioned, we are gonna fold the 7-3 offsuit. Ace-5 off on the cutoff would be maybe okay if we knew that all our opponents behind us are recreationals. I have not this info, so I'm just gonna fold. Table 3 we have ace-king and we have a limper UTG, which is nice, and an ISO, so we are going to 3-bet in position and we are definitely ready to get it in if our opponent is willing to do the same. Let's see what happens now. He just calls and we flop pretty nicely. I think it's a recreational, I'm not sure. He made some weird plays, so I'm just gonna bet big and that's it. If I knew he was a regular, I would probably play this hand differently, but you know, he made some weird stuff, so I'm just gonna bet big and bomb it. I expect him to make some kind of mistakes number like that. If he has a piece of it, just fold, so probably not this time. On table 1, we open pre-flop. Actually, we ISO'd on the UTG limper from the small blind, and it goes check 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 on the flop. I'm starting to value bet on the turn. I made it for pre-flop, big blind called, and the limp called. After they all checked on the flop, I don't mind value betting on the turn, and I'm also gonna value bet the river with a small sizing. I think he may call us with any weaker jack. He may call with something like any pair if I make it small enough. So I don't mind team value betting this way. If he has an ace, that's fine, but he doesn't, so team value bet worked pretty fine. So we go on table 3 and we are gonna we can do many things here. If I was versus a regular, I would probably check back quite frequently. Versus a recreational player, I prefer to bet for team value. They have wider calling ranges and they do not check raise enough usually. And I'm gonna bet again on the turn, usually to check back on the river. Now on the turn we get value from his throws, but again on the river not. And if I think I have 2 streets of value versus a bad player, I prefer to take flop and turn than other lines, because it punishes in a better way their passive leak. Now we open pocket 7s at the same table, table 3, and let's see if we get some action. We are not gonna call a 3-bet if that's gonna happen, but we definitely don't mind playing post-flop if somebody else calls, but unluckily this guy 3-bet. He's a recreational, but pocket 7s plays super poorly out of position in a 3-bet pot as a defender, and I'm just gonna fold it because I think calling here is gonna lead me to bigger mistakes post-flop. Table 2, we have a limper, and if nobody else does, we are going to ISO. King 10 off out of position is a bit of a bottom range, but I don't mind. I mean, his limp calling range is probably weaker, plus he's short stack, so he doesn't have probably... I mean, we have a bit less reverse implied odds. Unluckily, even the big blind called, and I'm just gonna check the flop. I'm gonna check the flop and then reevaluate on the turn. If it goes check, 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 I may start bluffing sometimes, but I'm just check folding as the first line. Of course, that was the plan, but when this guy bets one blind, we are not gonna fold. We have to call at least, and we may do something on the turn. Let's see what's gonna happen. The other guy obviously calls, which is quite standard. And I'm gonna check now with top pair, no kicker, no need of protection. If I lead out, I think we are just gonna get too many folds in general, so I prefer to check again. And versus a bad player, when he bets again super small, I don't mind check raising to get theme value from his draws and stuff. If he shoves, it's gonna be very tricky, but I don't know if I can fold. Okay, that goes well. And now at the same table on table 2, we are gonna have 3-4 suited, and it's gonna be a raise first in, definitely, especially given the big blind is a recreational player. A small blind as well, so they're both recreationals, and I don't mind playing in position with one or two of them. The flop is terrible. I'm just gonna check on the flop, and then I am going to reevaluate on the turn if we're gonna have some chances or not to win this pot. He bets from blind. This time we are gonna fold. We have very few equity here and not a lot of playability. Table 3, we are going to 3-bet in position versus the MP, well, UTG +1 raise, and versus a 4-bet we are just gonna fold. If we knew he was a regular and we were playing 100 big blinds deep, we could also shove sometimes. This deep, I wouldn't hate too much calling to a 4-bet if it's not huge. Would be a bit maybe not ideal with no info, but if I knew he was a regular, I wouldn't mind sometimes. The flop is not bad. I'm certainly gonna c-bet this one. It's a pretty nice board, difficult to hit from him. We have decent blockers, we have decent equity. So I really don't mind c-betting here. I'm also gonna bet a bit bigger than usually, given we're a bit deep stack. See what he does. I mean, if he check raises, unless he makes it huge, I'm probably gonna call, because, you know, we have a lot of implied odds. I don't think we are drawing that much. I don't think he has kings or king 7 ever, so it's probably fine to bet call there, unless he makes it huge, given we're also deep stack. Shoving also would be an option, because check raising there would be very weird on his side, so I wouldn't mind to shove time to time. And now with king 4 suited, we just open on the cutoff. We are not gonna give them any action if they 3-bet us. This guy calls from the small blind. Usually this means they are recreational players, but there may be some exception. And let's see what the big blind does. If he squeezes, obviously we are not gonna call, just gonna fold. Thinking about it, he just calls at the end, and we flop a mid pair on a very connected and low board. It should be a decent board for them. I think they're gonna hit this a lot, and with a hand like this, I'm just gonna check back. We don't have a lot of showdown value. When he leads out, and I think I'm just gonna fold, you know, his range to do so is probably not that bad, and king 4 is terribly tough to bring at showdown. Maybe if there was a spade, I would call, but without it, I think we can just fold in a multi-way pot. It's a bit tight, but, you know, the board is already bad. We have a very marginal hand. Not many ways to improve without a backdoor flush draw. And so I would say that folding there is fine. Pocket tens, we are going to open on table 3 as well. It's so far the table with the most action. We're not that much card dead there. I'm not in love with calling out opposition 3-bets, but this is maybe one of the hands I would do so if there is a 3-bet. Didn't get it one so far, and the big blind calls. The flop is not the best, but I think I'm still gonna c-bet with no info on my opponent. Checking back would be an option. GTO perspective is gonna be overbet or check, mainly check, but we don't care much about GTO at these stakes versus random unknowns. So I'm just gonna bet small, trying to get him to fold hands that could bluff me later in the hand. Sometimes it's gonna be a thin value bet. And I'm gonna check back this turn, you know, and on a blank river, I think we may have a decent bluff catcher, not an awesome one, but a decent bluff catcher. So yeah, I'm gonna check now and hope to see a blank river and him hopefully checking, or to see a 10 on the river, but unluckily that wasn't the case. And if he bets now, it's gonna be close, you know, no draws got there, there were a couple, and now I'm just gonna check back. I don't think he has an ace, but I also don't think he's gonna fold a queen, so I don't see many merits in betting here. Just gonna check, hoping he has a 5 or a busted draw. And he has nothing really, king high, which is fine. On table 2, I'm gonna call one blind with king 8 suited, borderline, and we flop a nice board. Just in a 4-way pot, I think it's probably better to check. It's not terrible to lead out, honestly, because our opponents are recreational players, so it can't be that bad. But maybe in a 4-way pot, I prefer to play in a bit more careful way, so to say. And UTG c-bet about half the pot. If the button doesn't raise, I'm not gonna fold, of course. And calling or raising, I feel like raising may be a bit of an overplay now. So I'm just gonna call. It's not gonna be a nice spot unless we improve, but let's see. The 6 could be better, could be worse. I'm still gonna go with the check and let's see what the UTG does. If he bets huge, I think we're in a bad spot here. And he pots it. It's very unlikely he's spotting this with something weaker than my hand. Maybe sometimes on draw or combo draw, but I feel like I'm in a bad shape here out of position when this guy chose to pot in a 3-way pot. I'm just gonna fold, you know. I don't think it's profitable here to call that much with no info on our opponent. If not, it is a bad player and probably passive. On table 4, we have queen 8 suited. We do open and just got a call from the button. I don't mind betting here. We have a couple of backdoors and decent blockers. He calls, the king hits of clubs. It's not terrible. Could be bad, could be worse. I think I'm gonna bluff this one this time. Giving up is absolutely fine as well. See what he does. Of course, we are not continuing if he raises, and he does raise. Probably a flush draw. He was just thinking if to raise or not, and this time we just fold. We go on table 2 with 5-10 suited, and we definitely open from the button versus bad players. We flop a second pair with no kicker on a somewhat connected board. I think it's fine to see it for thin value here. It's ultra thin, but there are many draws, and I don't expect a huge amount of raises from them anyway, because they're passive players probably. And them folding there is fine, them calling there is fine, so I don't mind betting versus this kind of competition. If I was versus somebody more aggressive, or likely more aggressive, I would definitely check back a hand like that. Jack 9 off, we are gonna fold from the cutoff, and let's see what else we got. So far, nothing interesting, it seems like, on the other tables. We just are folding, but let's see. There are a couple of players which may be regressional, I'm not sure. I'm keeping an eye on them. Now I have pocket threes on table 3 and table 4, and both on the big blind, so let's see what kind of spots we get. Well, on table 4 we just got the blind, so not gonna be very interesting probably. We also have ace deuce on table 2 that we are definitely gonna open from the middle position, and I'm gonna call one blind with pocket raise. And with pocket raise, we flop literally nothing, so it's not gonna be very interesting. I don't mind sometimes 3-betting this on table 4. We're gonna check for the pocket raise. Table 2, it went check, check. It's highly unlikely he has a check, by the way, these kind of players play usually. So I'm just gonna try to bluff him now after the check, check on the flop. I expect some calls on the turn, not many on the river. But this river, well, we may fold. We may make him fold a 9 or an 8 sometimes. So I'm just gonna pot it. I don't mind. He has a 10 sometimes. He's just gonna raise. I don't care. But he folds. That's sweet. Yeah, you know, they have very wide ranges. I expect him to call wide on the turn. Sometimes he's gonna hit that river, but when he doesn't, this is the kind of river he's always gonna fold. So I don't mind at all. We go on table 4 with Jack, with Ace King. Before with the Jack 9, I 3-bet and I got a 4-bet, so I just folded. Nothing weird there. And we are now gonna 3-bet versus this UTG player. Or called 4-bet. No, no call 4-bet. We're just gonna 3-bet. And if he 4-bets, you know, in theory we could and should call sometimes, but in practice with no info on my opponent and history, I'm just gonna shove if he 4-bets, especially at low stakes where the rake is a bit high. But let's see what he does. Thinking about it. A lot. And he folds, okay. We go on table 1 with 10 jacks suited and we do open. With a borderline hand, if they 3-bet at these stakes, we could call, we could fold. I would say there is not a huge difference. If you don't feel comfortable in your 3-bet pot play, I think you can fold it and it's fine. If you feel comfortable in playing position 3-bet pot, just call. I would say that's a good compromise. And on this flop, we are definitely gonna c-bet and hope he folds. If not, we hope to hit a queen. That's not a queen. I think versus a recreational player, we have to 3-barrel here because, you know, they're gonna call with a bit too of a wide range, flop and turn. And I'm gonna bluff a lot on the river, even on a spade or a non-spade, I think. I think their range is so wide that they're gonna fold enough, I think, on any river. And here pocket deuces with 3-bet in position, but unluckily we get a 4-bet and we just have to fold. We go on table 1 with 7-8 suited, we do open from the cutoff. Cannot be a call to 3-bet. I mean, it will be close. I will probably fold it normally, more often than not. Maybe if the small blind with a recreational 3-bet, I might call, given we are also slightly deep stack. But it just calls, which is the most likely scenario. And we flop a mid pair. Versus a regular, I would check back quite a bit with this mid value hand, but versus a recreational, I prefer again to bet for thin value flop and maybe even turn to check back river. I think when you face a passive opponent, this bet check line is much better when you have mid value because you extract this kind of thin value and you don't let your opponent the chance to bluff you. Anyway, they won't do it much, so doesn't matter. If he raises, we are folding. That's the most important thing. And if he folds, we're happy anyway. That's a good thing, no? If he calls, we're okay. If he folds, we're okay. Not very things can go wrong. Ace Queen. We ISO. Well, there are a couple of limpers, and we just make a big raise from the big blind. If they all fold, we're fine. Okay, and they do so. And on table 4, we have Queen 10 suited. We are definitely gonna open, and we cannot do much versus a 3-bet. If it was a regular, sometimes we might 4-bet, but I will not do anything versus a recreational, just folding out of position. Nothing else to do. On table 2, now we have Ace Queen again, we have a limp and an ISO. I'm going to 3-bet this one. If he 4-bets, we are just gonna fold. It's not a hand we're going to continue out of position versus a 4-bet. If he calls, we're gonna play some poker post-flop and probably be aggressive as I think you should be at the stakes. He folds, which is fine. Okay, we go back to the 4 tables and let's see what's gonna happen. Nothing, we go back to table 2 and we have Ace-6 suited. Definitely a hand we can 3-bet with in position, and I'm gonna do that now. We just 3-bet him. Some people would say that since we just 3-bet him, we shouldn't exaggerate. Some other people would say exactly because we just 3-bet him, maybe now he will think we must have a hand and so we should do it. So I would say just stick with your plan, do not go into overthinking. If your plan was to 3-bet this hand, just 3-bet it. Doesn't matter much what you did before. Unless, of course, we are on a big sequence of raises constantly. Now, on this flop, I think you would expect me to c-bet a lot, and I will not do anything different than what he expects. So I'm gonna c-bet. I think he's gonna call it any pair, maybe even king, queen, king, jack, stuff like this. If he raises, he's going to be a bit suspicious. I would say if he has 10s or 7s, he would more often than not so play on a board like this. So if he raises, I might choose to call. It's a bit tricky. But when I bet on the calls, I'm just gonna check back on the turn because we have two streets of value. I'm not sure it's a recreational. If it was a recreational, as I mentioned before, I would just keep fighting here and check back river. Being an unknown, I'm just gonna check back here, which I think is the most standard way to play this hand. On the river, we're going to reevaluate. The 7 is a good card because, you know, well, we split versus ace 8, ace 9, if it helps a bit. But also, it's less likely he has pocket 7s. So I would say it's all in all a decent river. If he bets, it's gonna be difficult. I think I have to call. He may have some busted draws or stuff like this. So I think we have to call if he bets. Not super happy. If I had some info on this guy, it'd be easier to make a decision. I don't think it changes much. I would say to this size, I think we have always to call, of course. If you bet bigger, I would say it would be really, really close to fold or call. He had this queen, which is fine. Could be worse, could be better. Doesn't matter much. The call preflop with his queen out of position probably wasn't ideal. He may be a recreational, I'm not sure. It's definitely a non-standard call preflop. Ace 4 off and 8-9 off and ace 7 off. I would say ace 7 off could be an open on table 4 if everybody else folds. So we may raise first in. Ace 4 off is just going to be a fold versus a 2x raise. And we do open ace 7 off, as I mentioned. 8-9 off, unluckily, is going to be a fold. Even if there is 2 blind raise and a call. We do not put 1 blind just because it's just 1 blind. Each hand, even this one, they all play better in a heads-up pot. So keep in mind that the price may be greater if there is a bet and a raise and a call, but do not call trash hands for that reason. Trash hands, especially, which needs fold equity to be profitable, play much better in a heads-up pot than in a multi-way pot. So I would, per absurd, I would have been happier to call 2 blinds versus 1 raiser than versus 1 raiser and a caller. New hands incoming, and we have pocket raise on the small blind on table 3. We are gonna raise first in, otherwise we're probably just gonna fold. If the big blind was a recreational and somebody else raised, I wouldn't mind sometimes to call in that situation, but that's not the case because the big blind we don't know. He may be a regular. We just played 1 hand with him, which was probably a pre-flop mistake, but not that big to make him a recreational. And would be 3-betting an option. I would say sometimes would be fine versus the button. I'm gonna fold this time. I don't mind sometimes to use this hand as a 3-bet shove. So 3-bet in there and shove if he 4-bets. But, you know, I'd like to have some info. And the few info I had are that he made the button, the guy who was on the button, he could be a recreational, so no thank you. Queen 7 suited is going to be a raise first in, but otherwise it's just gonna be a fold, and so we just fold. 5 jack off, really nothing to say there about that, it's just gonna be a fold. And back to the tables, let's see what's gonna happen. Result of action. I hope my camera is fine because I'm in a weird setting and I have the light exactly behind me, so I see myself okay in the preview. I hope it's gonna be the same in the final result, but you know, I'm abroad, so I'm not in my usual office, so I do what I can. Table 1, entry suited, is usually, I mean, it's normally a fold here from the button. I wouldn't mind to open it to raise first in a table, in a soft table. I mean, if the blinds are soft. And the big blind here is a recreational, so it may be the case, but this guy opens before me, so I'm just gonna fold. So we go on table 3 where we have queen jack off. I could definitely 3-bet ISO a recreational. I could definitely open, and this time we are going to open. We can't do much versus a 3-bet. We could 4-bet if we know that our opponent is 3-betting too much, but we need to have that info probably to 4-bet this one. They all fold, which is fine. 9-10 off, a bit too weak to open from the middle position. Just gonna be a fold. And on table 2 instead we have 8-10 suited. This is a hand that we can play frequently from the big blind, depending on the action, of course. We have a limper, not ideal, but let's see. I just opened up the ISO, but this guy ISO, and when this guy ISOs, I think out of position we should just fold. It's a nice hand, obviously, 8-10 off, 8-10 suited, just not nice enough to call 3 blinds out of position in a multi-way pot, even if the limper was a recreational. Because you see, even a spot like this, now that we would have flopped this flush throw, it's gonna be fairly difficult to manage in a 3-way pot, and we're gonna lose a lot of money when you're behind and don't hit our draw. We're gonna win not that much probably when we hit, because everybody is going to be more careful in a 3-way pot when a flush gets there. So I would say in multi-way pots, usually our implied odds to hit our draws are a bit lower than they normally are in a heads-up pot. 5-7 off, we fold. 10 off as well. Now we have ace-10 offsuit from the UTG that we can definitely open. And king-8 off, just gonna be a fold, you don't see that, but okay. Let's go back and stay to the ace-10 off. Small blind is a recreational, big blind, I really don't know. I played some hands with him heads up when I was opening the tables and have opposite feelings. Ace-10 off, we fold to 3-bet. It's not a hand we want to continue with, especially when UTG gets closer if we're on the button, but still. Normally just a fold. We fold 3 deuce off, and let's see what else we can do. Fine suited, gonna be a fold now. 8-4 suited, we're not going to open that. Just gonna be a fold. Three 7 suited, nothing to do there. Okay. Soon we're gonna have new hands. Here they are. Table 3, we get 4-10 suited. Gonna be a raise first in if everybody else folds. Usually this takes. Could be a fold in theory. Otherwise, if anybody else gives action, we're just gonna fold. But this time, as mentioned, we're just gonna open this and let's see what the big blind does. If you 3-bet, we're folding. If you fold, we're happy. That's sweet. I would say folding too much the big blind is one of the most common leaks at the micros you will see, so that's why on the small blind, I think, as a standard, you should be quite aggressive. Jack 6 off, gonna be a fold on table 3. Ace 5 off, table 1. Bah, I mean, we're gonna defend if button or small blind opens. Otherwise, we are probably just gonna fold. Even versus the cutoff, I think it can be a fold. No need to play that. Table 2 and anti-table, I think we should open from the cutoff, ace hit off. It's gonna be fine. This flop hit. Pretty nice flop for the caller on the big blind, and I'm just gonna check back. We have very low fold equity, very low equity. We just hope to improve on the turn, basically. And we hit a gut shot, and you have a blocker also for the flush draw, which is nice. He bets. I would say when he bets, it's a bit more sick. Folding is probably the best, but we could also call, sometimes, because we can improve, and also we can bluff sometimes the club if it hits. But of course, when a blank 10 hits, we're just gonna fold. It was close, I don't mind calling if you have the plan to also bluff sometimes when you miss, of course. If your just plan is to hit your gut shot or overcard, I don't think is a profitable call in the long run. Table 2, now we have Queen 10 suited and we do open from UTG. We have a bring in from a recreational player, likely. And we are gonna fold in case of 3-bet, but we don't mind playing with the blind in position if we get to that. And we do get to that. Unlikely another bet flop. Those are the kind of boards which are very good for the big blind call caller. And we can't do much here, you know, we can just check back here and hope to improve to something, and we don't this time. I think I'm just gonna check back. I'm not even gonna bluff this one. The river is okay if you want, but I'm not gonna value bet if he checks. And if he bets, it's gonna be close, but I think it might be a fold. And when he checks, as I mentioned, we're just gonna check back and try to get to showdown, and we win. Nice. Table 2 again, now we have ace-queen, much better than what we had so far. Can be a call versus early position, could be a 3-bet versus late position. It plays well in both situations, a hand like this, so I have no strong preference on what to do. I'm gonna call this time versus this middle position raiser. Again, calling will be totally fine, 3-betting, pardon. And I don't mind check raising when you have now a top range in a board like this. I would prefer to do it more often versus cutoff and button. I would say sometimes we may do it also versus middle position. It's kind of close. He checks back, unluckily. When did you sit? I think we can bet, we can check. I'd probably prefer to bet, given how the player pool plays, because they're probably a bit more passive than they should be. So I just prefer to bet myself and hope to get a call, but it doesn't happen. On table 4 we have queen 10 off, which is gonna be a raise first in. If we are going to get to that, and we do open, but we are not gonna call a 3-bet if that happens. Just calls and we flop a decent flop, I mean, as decent as this flop can be. And we could do many things. I don't mind check raising sometimes, you know, I think it's a line which is underdone. I think most of our opponents are not gonna check enough back and gonna bet too much, so I think it punishes well the field. When the king hits, I think I'm just gonna bet twice with these blockers and the extra equity we got. He calls, and I'm just gonna bet again on the river with queen high. I don't think there is need to bet huge. If he wants to bluff catch, he's gonna bluff catch anyway. Let's see what he does. Thinking about it, if he raises, would be weird because I think he would have bet a jack on the flop, but we can't do much with this. At the end, he just calls and he had a king, so it was quite an easy call, to be honest. On table 2, we have ace-10, and I don't mind squeezing when there is likely a recreational player calling. See what he does. He calls, limp calls, which is quite weak. We have a nice flop given the blockers we have, so I'm just gonna bet on the flop about half pot, and I'm gonna keep firing quite a bit here. If he raises, of course we have to fold, but if he just check calls, I think we're gonna be aggressive. And if he folds, we are happy, so that's fine. Queen it off, cannot be an open. Okay, some extra folds here and there. I'm gonna play about 7 more minutes or so. I'm gonna try to play 40-minute session plus sit out time. Okay. Do some couple of folds. Drink some water because I am getting unable to speak. The good news. Queen is off, we just fold. Okay, we have Queen 4 suited at table 1. We are going to defend this quite frequently, unless there is crazy action before us. We have a raise from the cutoff, and we can definitely call on the big blind. Pretty bad board for our hand, not too bad for our range. If there was a club, I might sometimes try to do something, but without a club, I think I'm just gonna check fold this one. If he checks back, we may try to bluff it sometimes, of course. He bets, we just fold, even to a small size like this. Table 2, we have King Queen and we have a UTG limper. We're definitely gonna raise for team value here, pre-flop, not even too thin. He calls. I'm gonna bluff this board ace high. I don't know how much he is in his limp calling range, so we are just going to c-bet and we'll continue on certain runouts, especially high cards. The 7 is so. I think we may sometimes bluff. It's really close. The 7 is borderline. When he calls twice, I don't know if he can bluff again. He also called pretty quickly, which I think means he's gonna have an ace a lot of times on a board like this. And I don't think he's ever gonna fold an ace, so I'm just gonna check and give up at this time. And fold this. Probably value bet. And King 10 off suited, pardon, we open on the button on table 1, we get the blind. Then we go on table 3 with ace jack, and I'm just gonna 3-bet this versus the MP recreational player who just raised, and he folds, that's fine. On table 4, now we have a6 suited, and we're gonna call versus the cutoff. That's a flop where we're probably gonna defend. Check call or check raise, I like both options. I'm gonna check call this time, and we're gonna have a lot of nice turns. So maybe there we're gonna play some check raise. Of course, if it doesn't bet huge, I mean, if he pots, I'm probably just gonna fold here, but he doesn't. 10 of clubs hit. Check raise is still an option. I don't mind check raising, actually. I don't hate it, I like it. We're gonna bluff also decent amount of rivers, and this river sucks. I think he has a lot of kings in his checking range to the river. Just gonna check and give up at this point, but it was cheap. We released our equity for a very decent price, that's fine. And we go on table 2 with pocket deuces. Unluckily the guy also had a flush draw, so would have been nice to hit one. So to hit that. Pocket deuces I called as a third person in this hand, and I'm gonna check back. We bluff the turn. If they check again, they will check again, and I may start bluffing. Pocket deuces is really a good hand here, and so we do try to do that. I'm gonna bluff probably a club or a diamond on the river. There is also another hand that we're gonna see soon. Table 3. I 3-bet. This guy called. He may be a recreational, as I mentioned before. And I'm gonna bet again on the turn. And I don't think we can fold if he shoves on a board like this. When he has this kind of stuff. I wouldn't be happy to see him shoving, but again, I don't think we can fold. With all these throws out here and a decent kicker. Table 4, we are gonna call the 4-bet, and we are ready to get it in, of course, with ace king. But this guy folds, so we get it, and that's it. Now on table 4 we have ace 10 suited, and we're gonna 3-bet or ISO or raise first in. It's a nice hand from the button, can do all this kind of stuff. We have a raise, and we are gonna 3-bet. And I would say it's also decent to call a 4-bet sometimes, this hand. Not the best, not the worst. It could be a regular. He's playing multiple tables, and so far he made reggish lines. So I expect him to have a 4-bet bluffing range, so that's why I don't mind calling. We dominate part of his 4-bet bluffing range, so I really don't mind. We do call, and the flop is not the best, not the worst. If he c-bets and doesn't make it huge, we are definitely gonna call. If he checks, I think we have to bluff. Losing to ace jack, ace queen, ace king, which he is probably gonna fold here or turn. Let's see what he does. Thinking about it, c-bet or not, he checks, and I am gonna bet. As I mentioned, we are too vulnerable to ace jack and ace queen, and I really want to bet. Gonna bet also half the pot here. I think I'm gonna reduce the amount of ace jack and ace queen he's gonna call, and ace king. If he shoves, we are gonna fold, obviously. If he calls, I think we may continue on some turns, but we're gonna see which ones. He shoves, just gonna fold. I mean, it's an easy fold there. 10 and off, we just fold, and we get to play this limpet pot on table 3. We're just trying to win this right now, hoping that 5 high is gonna be enough. On this board, they will fold quite a bit, since they shouldn't limp a lot of face high, stuff like this, but when it calls, I'm just gonna let it be. We go on table 4 with pocket queens, and we are gonna open this. Get a cold call from the small blind, and let's see what the big blind does. If it squeezes, I'm gonna 4-bet, trying to get it in, but it doesn't. We flop a very interesting flop, and I am just gonna c-bet with our set. It's obviously a bad call. We wouldn't be very happy, but of course we also have equity versus our flushes, so I wouldn't mind too much to do that. Big blind is thinking about it. Let's see what he does. Folds. So we go on table 3 with king 10 off, and we open from the cutoff. Big blind is very recreational. Let's hope he calls, and I'm gonna sit down next big blind. I missed the time. We're already past our 40-minute threshold. I think the session was a bit better than -1 stack so far. So, I mean, I would consider this a break-even session. We had some interesting hands. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Pocket nines on table 3. Let's see if we can 3-bet this. We ISO versus UTG limper. Smobland is thinking about it, and he makes this 3-bet. It's probably gonna be a fold. When a recreational does that, it's usually pretty strong, and the price is not that great for us to get in. If he was deep stack, maybe, but he's not, so we just let it be. 7-4 off, we do fold, and we have king 7 off. Normally a fold. We can open at this table probably, if I already has folds on table 2. And we are gonna open. Again, slightly loose. If you fold this hand, it's totally fine. King 8 off is usually my standard opening range. They both call, and I don't think I can bet this flop. Just gonna check back. If they both check again, we might choose to bluff. But once one of them bets, just fold. Now we have Ace Queen, and we are definitely gonna open this hand, and let's see what we get. Button, recreational fold, small blind recreational folds, big blind calls. I don't know who is this guy. He wasn't playing full stack in another table, so I will treat him as a recreational. I may be wrong, but I think more often than not we are right. So I'm just gonna bet big, because I want to get the maximum when he has something that wants to call here. And also in theory it's not bad to bet big here. We should also overbet in theory. And he calls. If it was a reg, I would sometimes check, but not having this info, I'm gonna keep firing big because he may have not big enough bluff raising range, and also he may have a wider calling range, not only this. So just bet big. If he raises, unless he makes it 2x, I'm probably gonna fold. And if he calls, I'm gonna think about symbol betting the river, but this river sucks. I'm gonna check back. We may have some little team value versus things like ace 4, ace 7, ace 8, but simply too narrow. He's gonna have some ace x with heart and just have to check. Yes, jack. Okay. Quinten off on table 2 again. I don't mind opening from middle position. That's totally fine, but we get a 3-bet and we are just gonna fold. Okay, we are at the last hand. Left in table 1, actually no, we've also done that, so that was it. So I hope you enjoyed this session. If nothing, I mean, something was not clear, I hope something was, but if something is not clear, please write in the comments your question. I will be more than happy to reply to you. Also, keep in mind to subscribe to the channel if you like it. You will be always up to date with my new contents, and I hope that may help a bit your game in some way. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye!